Hey everybody, Scoutcraft here again. It's Monday, another start of a new week. I hope you had a great weekend. Today we have a few things to get to. Last week's video on Friday seems like you enjoyed it, and then a lot of people wanted to see that Machinists tool bag, the leather tool bag done up, and I could see why. You know, I as soon as I saw that, I said that's a nice bag. It's a classic, old-fashioned bag, but it was beat up and. Let's see what we can do with it. Let's talk about that. Start with that. It's going to be a couple episodes because we got to let it dry and things like that. So we'll start with that today, and we got a lot of other things to get to. Let's get right started. Okay, here is the bag in question. It was a dried out machinist bag, very hard, very stiff. Obviously it's been in a basement or garage or something where you could see it wasn't climate controlled. This is like almost like a mold on there, like a white mold. You know how it gets a chalky. Leather's a funny thing. Leather by nature is meant to decompose. It's not a great material for bags, for sheaths, for all kinds of things we use it for. We just use it because it was a byproduct of the animals that people would eat. But in reality, it has a lot of shortcomings. However, for some reason, we just love leather because we're brought up with it. Now, this particular bag has a couple of D-rings here that you can put a strap over. It's got a heavy-duty handle. Again, the stitching looks nice. Everything looks good. The first thing you want to do with something like this is we got to attack the hardware. See all the hardware here that's got rust and everything? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over that with the Dremel, the wire brush, just to get some, because you really can't do anything with it. That's the biggest, even if you restored everything perfect, you'll never get these to look 100% unless you replace them. But let's clean them up with the Dremel, the D-rings, everything, and start with the hardware first. Okay, that's step one. We got most of the rust off of all the hardware here. Everything, all the, the feet and everything. We just took off the rust. Okay, now what we're gonna do, believe it or not, we got to wash the bag. We got to get off this mold. Now, what we want to do to wash it is you can use a bunch of different soaps. You can use Dawn, you could use Ivory. There's a bunch of different soaps. You want to basically get in there and use a soft brush. This is a perfect brush for this, an old-fashioned. Remember, these used to be called like window brushes or something. So we're going to get there with not a lot of water, but water's okay. Leather is eventually meant to get wet. We're going to scrub it, and that's where it's going to take time to dry. So let's get to that. Okay, we took about a half an hour to scrub everything off here, and you can see we scrubbed it down first with Murphy's oil soap. That's just me. Don't go by this, is my preference. And then I actually did again with Goop hand cleaner. I love those two products, and I use them whenever I can. Anyway, you can see now it's soft enough that it opens up. That there's moisture back in the leather, but this is going to dry out now. We have to let it completely dry because after we do the cleaning. See there, we did the cleaning. Now after the cleaning and after it dries, it's going to take a couple days to dry out. Then we're going to oil it, put the oils, the natural oils back into the leather, and then we condition it. So that's the 3 steps that you do. You clean, oil, condition. So we're going to let this sit for a while and dry out. Not anywhere heat, no forced heat. Just to naturally dry out slowly. You should have seen the black muck that was coming off that bag, scrubbing it. Oh man, it was filling. It was just like mud going in. But then eventually the water got cleaner and cleaner until there was no more dirt coming off. So it's nice and clean inside and out. We'll let that dry. We have it hanging upside down about 3 or 4 feet from the oil burner so that'll stay warm. Next up, it's funny when you start cleaning up or you do little restorations here and there. Sometimes people come up and they say, hey, I have a neighbor that's got an old tractor that he, you can have it if you want it. And so you get these visions in your head. You're like, wow, an old tractor. You start thinking about like a nice Ford 8N or something. You say, wow, I could fix that up. And so you go over to that guy's neighbor's house and you find this sitting there. you know, and the guy's like, you can have it. And you're like, yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's a little bit out of my league as far as fixing, right? Happens all the time. Okay, next up, I was, you know, at the Long Island tool meet. You know, I go there early, take a little walk before the meeting, you know, and I noticed a telephone pole laying down there. And remember the old telephone poles? Let me show you. I shot a little video. You remember the old-fashioned telephone poles? You know, they were soaked in some kind of chemical, like a creosote or something. It had an unusual smell to it, but those things lasted for a long time. They're using this here in the parking lot so nobody backs over it, but you remember these spikes that they put in there? They bent them over, but they were meant to climb the pole, you remember? And then later on, they went to these kind of nuts here, these square nuts that you would put the clips on. Well, I just pulled one of these out of there. Well, it's kind of a funny story. When I was younger, you know, the Con Ed guys used to come and they always do work on the pole or whatever. One time I was walking past one of the poles, the Con Ed guys already left, and he left those little cleats, you know, the clip-on cleats that they put for the bottom 3 or 4 steps, and then the tops had those regular L bolts, but on the bottom, so that nobody would climb the pole, they had these detachable cleats, and some guy left them on there, and I was like, wow. So, you know, I'm a kid, 13 years old. Like I started climbing the pole and, you know, like stupid stuff kids do. I must have got about, I don't know, about 15 feet off the ground, and somebody must have yelled, get off the pole or whatever. Anyway, I came down and I took the cleats. I still got them somewhere around here, but I thought they were cool. And let me show you what I grabbed from this pole at the brush bar. Now, because I always have tools in the car, I grabbed a couple of the L bolts, and I did it for a reason, because I want to talk about them. But first, I want to see if I could straighten these out. Again, it's a little bit of a self-challenge, you know, but these are the L bolts. Look how long they were that went in the pole, huh? And this was a little clip, I guess a wire hanger or something, but look how nicely that's made. That's some heavy steel right there. And of course, one of these square head bolts. And I took these for a reason. Let's see if we can't straighten this out and see how we can do that. Now, here we are. Our issue here is to try and bend it back the way it was bent. And you could see here, you know, this little L indicates that this has to be bent back this way, okay? Now, again, here's the issue. A lot of people, the first thing they want to do is put heat on something. And heat it helps you bend it, but it also destroys the temper, whatever temper this had on it. And it could make it actually weaker. It bends easy, but then it's going to bend again easy. So it's always better, if you can, to cold bend something. Now, with something like this, a good bolted down vise is important, and a cheater bar. Now, here we position the L bolt into the vise where the flat side is. You see where the bend is. Here is our cheater pipe. The cheater pipe just has to be strong enough that the cheater pipe won't bend. We've seen that happen a lot, right? This is a piece of, looks like, galvanized pipe that fits over nicely. The closer the fit, the better. But you could see we can go here and we can move this up and down depending on where we want the bend. Now, we're going to put on here, we're going to apply some force out this way and try and get that bend back. Again, trying without heat. Now, as you're starting to bend it back, if you see it's starting to bend over here, you can always move this into the vise a little bit so that your bend will happen right here. And you can also move this pipe up and down depending on where you want the bend. See, because the other side of the pipe, so this is a real good spot. And you could add small little pushes of pressure until you could see you're getting the bend just where you want. Now, when you get to the point where you just want to tweak it, you know, like we have it down here, and we just want to straighten that out a little bit, that's where the dake always comes. It's always fun to work on a dake. We'll put the threads over here so we don't mess up the threads. We'll get the high spot. We'll look for the high spot here, which, you see, it's got a little bit of a weird twist to it. So we'll hit this one first, putting it between the two pieces of wood, and press it down, and hopefully we'll straighten that out a little bit here. You can see how easy this straightens out on the dake. Okay, we only have not even a ton here. Loosen it up, and we'll get this thing very straight. Now that it's nice and straight, we'll take a hand wire brush. These always come in handy. And we're going to clean out these threads, and this is the whole reason I took this, to demonstrate this, and then we'll clean this up on the wire brush. Now we went from this to this. Now let's take care of this one here. You can see this is a another one, and again I will talk about this in just a minute. Just let me clean this up real quick and we'll go over. Okay, here's the story behind why I'm fascinated with these type of fasteners. When I was just joined up with the Long Island Antique Tool Collecting Club, you know, guys would bring in tools and try and stump the old timers that were there, and you know, sometimes they were successful, other times they weren't. So I was walking one time and I found a bolt just like this one. And I said, I've never seen a thread like that. That is the most craziest thread. It's not a, you know, a regular 60-degree angle thread. It's kind of cut back. I said, they'll never have seen this before. So I bring it in, and I spoke to Dan and Jamie, who were the heads of the club at the time. And I said, have you ever seen this before? And of course, Dan, you know, he knew right away. He's like, yeah, that's a Buttress thread. I was like, what? A Buttress thread. I was just enamored by it ever since then, you know, and look at that, because you could see here how this would work as it screws in, you know, and, you know, the wood always tends to close back over threads, but look at how much force that would take to overcome these threads. And same here, they use a Buttress thread. These are only kind of an industrial thread. You don't usually see it, but you do see it on one particular tool. And that tool is one of my favorites. My friend Steve just picked up this exact vise at the last tool meet, and it is a Cardinal. It is a speed vise. You see here, it says Cardinal 3B. That's the size, and you can see it says speed vise. And how this operates, again, it uses one of the few tools that use a Buttress thread, and it has a half receiver here. Now, how this works, obviously, is when you have to put something into the vise, you know, you would open it up, put whatever you need to put into the vise, close it over here, put the threads down, turn it, and that would lock in, you know, and then you could, you know, turn this like this to get more leverage. But it is a strong vise, and it does a nice job in holding whatever you have to hold in the drill press or whatever. It's not a milling machine vise, it's a quick service vise, but isn't that something how that works? And you know, again, 1 2 3, if you have to chuck something real quick into the vise, this is the one to use, a Cardinal. And you can see it was manufactured by Cardinal Machine Company in Glendale, California. So if you ever come across one of these and don't think it's missing a part, it's not. Pick it up if it's cheap enough, you know, $20, $30. Pick it up. You won't be sorry. Okay, now it's been 3 days to totally dry out this leather. And when we dried it out, a couple things, it will stiffen up again, but it's not as stiff it was before, but it will stiffen up again because the moisture left the leather again. Now we're going to oil it. And what we're going to use Neatsfoot oil, which has been around since the 1800s, used for this. And we're going to do inside and out. You can see what the inside looks like here. It's got like a canvas bottom. And now you can see it's clean. Now this is the time, if you wanted to stain your leather, you would put a oil leather dye and get the color you wanted. But I'm just going to keep this natural. You know, we do have a little bit of cracking. There's other ways you could fix this, I've done, but you can also strip, you know, take these out, remove the rivets, put new straps on. Let's oil this up with Neatsfoot oil. It's going to darken it. And then afterwards, again, it'll evaporate years from now, the Neatsfoot oil. But the conditioner keeps the oil in. And it should soften it up nice. That'll be working. So all the threads and everything. So let's get the Neatsfoot oil, and I'll show you how to apply it and what it looks like when it's on. Now, what we're using Fiebling's 100% pure Neatsfoot oil. Now, you don't want to get the Neatsfoot compound because that has other chemicals in it and whatnot, and it's usually cheaper. But the 100% pure, it's a little bit more expensive, but this is the one you need. And you're going to really saturate your cloth, whatever you're using. And it's very thin, this oil, so it's meant to soak in. Now, let me show you how dark it's going to get. Boom, it's going to get very dark. Okay, and that's just the nature of the beast. And we're going to put this on, we're going to do inside and out, and it will soften it up. But then after this is on here and it absorbs in here and softens up the leather, we'll give it 24 hours to dry, and then we'll give it a condition. Okay, now we fully saturated the oil It'll, you know what's funny about leather? Leather will let you know when it's had enough, you know? So like when you put it on here, you see it's on there and it looks like it's on the surface. But just watch that for a couple seconds as the leather sucks the oil into it. It was so dry. Now it's starting to get supple again. You see, it's starting to get softened up because of the oil that's being absorbed. Again, we did the back too. We did in here. And we just keep applying it. And you'll know when it's had enough. Because when you put this on the surface like that, and it doesn't suck in, it's had enough. So you just keep doing it until the leather lets you know, okay, I've had enough. And then you set it aside, let it dry for 48 hours. Okay, one more thing. When we're at this point now where the oil has been taken in nicely by the case, now's a good time to knead the leather a little bit. Now, what that means is, you know, with old baseball gloves, remember we used to work them in because they were stiff? It's the same thing with the leather. And what you have to do is you roll the leather back and forth, just like this, between your hands, roll it, and that's how it breaks it in to make it soft, you know what I mean? Softer. Because you always do want the top to be a little bit soft. It doesn't matter, the sides, it's all right if it remains a little bit stiff, but you want the top not to be fighting you every time you want to go in the case. So the best thing, you don't want to roll back against the grain. This is the top grain. You don't want to roll back too much, but roll it forward like this, okay? And then work in a little bit of oil and just keep working it back and forth until this becomes nice and soft. Okay, we're calling this done for today. We'll come back and condition it. Now the oil is absorbed in there, but it's not dry yet. You know, I still have to let it sit for, you know, a day or two. But you can see it's softened out. Inside and outside is done, oiled, and it's nice and soft and supple. Now we'll put the conditioner in. That'll stop the oil from evaporating and also give it a nice texture, a nice shine on the outside. And we'll get to that next video. So in closing, we got about the hardest part of that leather bag is over. Now we just got to condition it. You know, remember, you can even use shoe polish. Shoe polish is a great preservative conditioner that's been around for many years, especially for that kind of leather, for veg tanned, stiff leather. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Take care now. Bye-bye.